get into this morning's live, which is going to be a very interesting one since we did have a really nice dump down yesterday and this morning where we back tested some pretty interesting areas. Bitcoin filled in its CME gap right around 114K. We had Ethereum come down and tap the breakout point, which could be the back test to maybe even confirm an earlier alt season and not have to wait so long. But at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen today. So yesterday I was in the position that, I would rather my audience wait, and then it ended up dropping like it did. So obviously there was opportunity within that. So I said yesterday during the live that I would rather my audience be liquid than buy it where it was at. And I meant every word of it because it looked like we had an imminent pull down. And that's what happened over the last 24 hours. So in theory, if you were looking for a buying opportunity, you got quite the swing here. Like, for example, XRP went from right around where it's at now yesterday at $3.09, $3.10. I think it got up to like $3.13, $3.15. What was this? $3.18. Dropped all the way down to $2.89, which is that support structure. And that's our real fine support right now under $3. So you have $3, $2.89. And if $2.89 broke, that's when you have to start to get into some real fundamental holy crap moments that are really going to come out and fill gaps. Fortunately for XRP, it held at $2.89. And now we're kind of coming up to this. Is this the start of a double bottom, back testing the 4-hour time frame? And now can we get back on the right side of the track in the daily time frame as we've pulled back up? If XRP can get back up to like 306, it's important. And then it starts working its way back up to 328, breaking above that, and then we can get back on and forward and so on and so forth. That's what we're trying to find out today. Going into a thinly traded weekend makes it very interesting. It always makes you wonder when you have movements like you did when Ripple, they have the 1 billion tokens that are released. So basically what they do is they sell 1 billion of them. It was at $3 plus, I don't know, 308, 306, 304, wherever it was at. And then it comes all the way back down to $2.98. And in theory, if they lock them back up or buy them back, I mean, they've got quite the savings there. So with the entire market right now, it's pretty interesting the way it came down. Now, is it confirmed that it's automatically going to reverse and that's the bottom? No, not even close. But at least for face value, it came down to that 3,558 we've been talking about the last couple of days. Back tested the pattern formation, and now it's this is the real test of alt season right here. Is it too early? Are we prematurely breaking out? Are we going to have that testicular fortitude to continue the push? Or is this going to prove to be too early to where it breaks itself back in here until the first quarter of 26? We don't know. That's what we're about to find out. And going into a thinly traded weekend, this sure as hell is going to be one volatile day. I know we've had a pull back up here a little bit, but we've done nothing yet to say, oh, this is going bullish, this is doing this is doing that. XRP's had a pretty profound pull up as well. And now that we have these, we don't have to guess anymore. Now XRP's formed this. Now we don't even need to guess. And we can now say that it is some kind of broadening wedge maybe, where we had the support structure have lower lows. We really don't know here because I'm not going to say it's going to be a wedge because I think you can look at it like this from up here and start to say we've got some kind of formation that I think is starting to spell out. But this is obviously in the daily. It's easier to look at this in the 4-hourly. But I do think that this is probably now setting up in a way to where it's telling us whether or not we're going to be bullish in the immediate short term or bearish. And it's going to be based on if we can break bearish or bullish out of this setup. Seems like it's given us a fundamental outlier here now. We don't have to guess. We've had these bearish crosses, so we'd want to break out of here sooner rather than later. And try to get a little bit of volume portfolio to come in just because right now it could very well be that right arm is going to fall. But if we can break out of this, a defined double bottom, came down to the 4-hour 200-day, and the daily time frame is seized to it hasn't gone bearish yet. The market had a bloodbath, but it still hasn't fallen out yet. So we'll see if that daily time frame can overtake, and in the monthly, you know, over time can start to play out bullish. But we've still got some work to do. Bitcoin at least came down to that 114K. Now the only question is, does it hold here? Let me get rid of some of this. It's kind of hard to see when there's all this stuff drawn in here. But does Bitcoin hold this formation? And we can realign it now that, you know, I don't know, we can overlap it. But I think it was pretty fair how we had this in the 4-hour time frame. I think that's fair. So it's just getting tighter and tighter now. And now we're going to decide, does Bitcoin hold this 114 area? Or does Bitcoin end up coming through here? And then it leads to a whole different slew of issues. Because then you don't know, is it got eyes for 190 or 91K, where that gap is technically sitting? Does it have eyes for 110, 112, and 111? Does it have eyes for a back test here where the cup and handle breakout was at 106? Like, that's the question we don't know. Now, if we start forming it down to 106, that could be a big problem for Bitcoin. Because then you could obviously see that head that could be starting to build. So we got a lot of stuff to watch here, and it's fun. This is fun. The volatility to me is fun. And honestly, I meant every word yesterday when I said I'd rather the audience be liquid than buy at this moment, because I felt like there was a better buyer opportunity coming in the immediate short term. And whether that was the best possibility that we had in the last 24 hours when we had that nice little dive, we don't know yet, but we've got slightly different numbers here that are starting to pop up, you know, from where we've been the last couple of days. I mean, we've literally gone down 15, 20% pretty much across the board in a real way. And XRP, I think, is faring a little bit better than some of the rest. Like, if we go to Algo in the last couple of days, just from when it got the resistance tap up here on Thursday, July 17th. So that's been, what, 2 weeks? But even if we go back to this week on Monday, just from Monday on Algo, I mean, it's come down 15.9%. And I know just a day or two ago, 2 days ago now, I put in the Telegram, don't be surprised, and I even shared it here, don't be surprised if your portfolio is 15% lighter in the days to come. You know, and I just put out a big long thing, and it's like, sometimes it's hard to talk about that stuff because, you know, it turns people off, you know, but I'd rather the audience have the ability to make a decision. You know, I would just, and right now, even with Algo, it's under the 4-hour and the 200 day. I mean, if we get a rejection here in the smaller time frames, unfortunately, the 2-hour death cross that we were worried about earlier in the weekend and late last week played out. It's playing out. So the short term is overtaking the higher frames right now. Same thing with IOTA. And we had that target of 1695 where I thought was a better buy opportunity for a first area to take a look instead of at 21, 22, 25. It just, if it fell out, we're not trying to buy the pushes up. We're trying to buy the pull downs. So we'll see how it reacts. I still think that this isn't so great right now. I like that we back tested some of this, but we got to get a little bit more volume and a little bit more certainty here. This kind of feels like we're just kind of exhausting ourselves here. And even with this pullback, I'm not impressed by the volume. Like, with that kind of a drop, and we know Michael Saylor bought an ungodly amount more of Bitcoin, so there's that. So obviously we should talk about that. Good morning. 11:09 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Friday, August 1st, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. Michael Saylor sounds the alarm. It's time to regulate digital assets. Could this guy be any more of a tool? Saylor's new 4.2 billion Bitcoin plan aims to reassure skeptics. So basically, if you're in the MicroStrategy, they're just going to have more common stock. They're going to release common stock. It's a disaster for anybody who owns MicroStrategy. All they do is they put out more and more common stock. So basically, they're going to do $4 billion probably, or whatever they're going to do to raise the options. And now it's going to dilute those shares. So anybody who owns that is just dumb. if I'm being honest. It's almost like anybody who owns crypto at this point, we could be looked at as a bunch of idiots. Because look what happened yesterday. Jim Cramer comes out and tells us to buy HBAR and tells us to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum in the last couple of weeks. It's not that he's wrong most of the time. What he does is he tells you to buy at a top, and then over time he might be proven right, but he makes you sit through 50% market turnovers. And by the time it gets back to where he said it was a good thing to buy at that exact moment, you could have literally bought it 50 cents on the dollar if you just looked at a chart. That's what he always does. He tells you in a roundabout way the truth. He just doesn't tell you the truth of when to buy it. Like he always seems to seemingly come out right when a crash is about to happen to tell you to buy something. Wasn't it seamless timing in the last week or two that he's been telling us to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and HBAR, and all of a sudden it's just dropping off the roof? I wouldn't do shit right now. If you're not in the market, I wouldn't do anything unless you're looking for opportunity and you're like, I haven't bought in. We had these big drops and I'm going to buy something. And that's one thing. But right now, I mean, there's a lot of level of uncertainty. You got to be very, very in the moment. Because if you're asking me, I would tell you it's easier to keep your money in your portfolio without it being in something in high stream volatility. Because I think it would have proved my point yesterday. I said, even if you bought yesterday at that point, are you going to sit through a 10%, 15%, even 5% drop immediately? Probably not. Most people who buy in, if you drop 10 grand and in an hour you see it's down $500, are you sitting through it? Probably not. So sitting through a drop like yesterday, it's impossible. Anybody who bought in yesterday probably already sold out on that drop after the drop was probably already finished. Didn't wait for the rebound back up, and now they're reconsidering entering again. I know there's a bunch of, probably 25% of you watching are in that position right now. So, it's, you know, I don't know. But I really wish everybody would have waited instead of buying yesterday. I do. I wish you would have waited for that little drop that was showing on the charts. Unless you bought and then you have the ability to be able to be like, hey, this is what I want to do. Because now a lot of what happens, I don't know what's going to happen here. And I did say yesterday, I thought XDC would be the outlier that would do much better than the rest of the market. I said it the last few days. Somebody sold off a significant amount. That's either an outlier of 700 and something thousand XDC that was sold in that one fair swoop. 895,000 in the 2 hourly, and this is going to end up finding itself melting back down, or this was just a big liquidity scare, got bought right back up, and now this plays out here into the next layer. I'm not exactly sure how to look at that. I do like that it grabbed liquidity here. I don't like that we're still on the bottom side of that resistance, and that's all the volume we could push in after that liquidity. That's something that bothers me a little bit. But I'm not going to read too much into it. That was a significant sell candle. And then the buyback, I mean, you had significantly less. So technically, the volume portfolio right there, I would have liked to have seen grow. But until it falls out, you can't really say anything more. So, KJB, at least you have a plan. That's what you want. You want a plan. You know, today's going to be tricky because we're going into a weekend. And the other thing that caught my attention today is gold's up almost $60. Like, that's something. I don't know why gold jumped so much and it's diverting again away from silver. All I know is there's a big market to still be had here in silver. And the opportunity is vast. And eventually that opportunity is not going to be there anymore. And I mean, we know gold and silver's rally isn't over. It's just we had to have big pullbacks. And like, I don't know, this to me seems like money's starting to rotate back into more sound money. And the US dollar yesterday hitting 100 was a joke. We talked about it yesterday when it happened. Like, the dollar's dying. I don't care what it does here, it's dying. We didn't even know if it could get up to 101. It's gotten rejected so far at this resistance here that used to be the pattern setup. So I think it's dying. There's nothing you can do to convince me to say the dollar is not going to die here. So you got to make your bets against the US dollar. That's always been my fundamental understanding. And that's how I've traded. That's how I'll continue to trade. That's how I'll continue to bet against the US. And until it backfires, which I don't think it will, We're going to be sitting in better and better spots as our peers sit in worse and worse spots. And that's the most frustrating part of it all. That is literally the most for me. It's the most frustrating part of it all. I know for my wealth to go up, somebody else's has to go down. And not by virtue of, hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. I turned on the phone.
Oh, okay. But it's not by virtue of we're taking somebody else's money. It's just that they're not going to bet the same way we did. And by virtue, that dollar that they're holding on to is going to go, and it's just going to keep going down. And it's I've got people in my own family I got to watch this happen to. So it's not like I'm not the exception to the rule. It happens all around me as well. And it's very frustrating. Actually, what I'm doing right now is I've got a couple $1,000s sitting on the sidelines. And I'm going to buy a little more Hecla mining. Sorry to interrupt our live. And I'm going to buy a little bit more, I think. Buy a couple hundred more shares of Hecla I just did. I think Fortuna. Nah, I'm trying to decide which one I want to. And I know these could very well break down still, but I'm trying to buy it at every border. And then if they keep coming down, certain things I like to buy more of. And Hecla is very undervalued. It's the U.S.'s largest silver producer. So I'm inclined to believe once this finally starts its big move, and this could be a head and shoulders, so I may be getting better buying opportunities. I don't know. But something tells me, this daily golden cross, or the monthly is converging this golden cross, and we're getting ready for some volatility. I like volatility. I love me some volatility. And that's why when most are paying attention to to crypto, I'm like, what's going on over there in precious metals? While I watched the portfolio that could have been stacked full. That it's just I like to look at it in different ways. My trading style is not for everybody, believe me. I know that. Most people can't stomach anything out of crypto, not in crypto, and I understand that's the people's passion. But I tend to like to clean up outside of crypto too. It actually makes it pretty fun. Especially when some other people tag along with me. That makes it the funnest. And if you're wondering why Dolly Varden isn't on there, I sold it because it doesn't pay a dividend, and I decided to sell it out when it hit. It was about $4.16, but then I waited and it sold out at $3.80. And then I said, once it comes below there, I'm just going to take that money and then I'm going to put it into these other ones that I like. And I don't know if that's going to be the right decision, but it rubs me the wrong way. That they're still in the negative, even though they're starting to trend up. But I want my dividend paying ones to be more dividend paying, so to say. All right, so there, I just did what I did. I'm very happy about that. I think I did 222 more shares of Fortuna, 222 more shares of Hecla, 160 something more shares of First Majestic. We're cooking. Hopefully it comes down more and then we'll really be cooking. I know it seems weird, but that's what I want. Anyhow, let's get to some of the comments so I'm not ignoring everybody. I apologize. I'm just waiting for the market to come back down. I mean, I don't see anything here that is really... I don't know. I would love to think it's going to go up here, but there's no volume that came in. It doesn't look any better than yesterday. The fact that gold, for whatever reason, is putting on this tells me going into the weekend, something big's coming. Are we about to have some kind of escalation and war on the weekend? Last time gold did this on Friday after a significant downturn all week, we ended up having expansion and war. And the trade talks got even worse. And we seen what happened with the trade talks yesterday. They raised it in Canada to 35 or whatever percent. They did stuff in China. And they put stuff on all these different countries. There was like 6 or 7 countries. They didn't really talk about it in the media. So the last time this happened, we had escalation and expansion of war on the weekend. And then mining stocks did ballistic moves on Tuesday, I believe it was the following week. Monday, they dumped for some reason as gold and silver was pumping. And we said, well, this doesn't seem right. And then the next day, they just had a nice little move. I don't know. I do know, but I don't know. I would love to see some volume come in here because we're at a point now where we're about to put in a weekly reversal. And if we put in a weekly reversal, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be several months of downturn. And I know the daily still looks fine. I know the monthly still looks okay. But once you start to turn too far, you start to break the point of no return. And then the short term overtakes the long term. And now you go from having a short term correction to a whole pattern flip. That's why we're at that point right now. If Bitcoin comes below 114 and Ethereum comes below 3,500 and what was it at the moment? 58, we're in some trouble. You know, and that bounce back, the weekly was not impressive in volume. And we're running out of time now. We've only got 2 days and 9 hours. That daily after a drop like that's horrendous. I talked about it yesterday. That daily and weekly was looking horrendous for Ethereum. And I know the monthly closed in a bullish area, but I don't care about that. We're in the middle of a move. Just because the monthly closed, that means we've got a whole month now that we can technically tag down unknown amounts, and then we still have got the whole month to work our way back up to see how bearish or bullish it is going into, you know, September. I'm not a big fan of August and September in crypto. You all know this. I like October when you start to see the pumpkins, and that's usually when it starts to materialize the last part of a drop. And then by November, you start to see the turnaround, and you have a beautiful Christmas into a new year. And then by the new year, it just starts to tank again. It happens pretty much routinely. I believe that's exactly how this bull cycle played out too. You know, by November, we had turned around when we seen the pumpkin start. We started to realize the biggest part of the correction. And then by November, mid-November, we were on the mend and on our way back up, rounding, big move. December looking great. And on my birthday, we hit our bullish top until we rounded down and did the double top in January. But that was the start of the end on my birthday, December 17th, 2024. That was the start of the end of this rally. And yeah, we still came up. We melted up, double top. But now, I mean, altcoins just haven't done anything except XRP. And it's true because altcoins have still done nothing. Think about it. XDC was at 15 cents when it hit that top, and now it's at 9.8. At least XRP's at $3.01, even though it was at 3.44, but then came up to 3.66. You know, so at least it came back up. Some of these other ones haven't given us that. DGB was up at over 2 cents. It didn't even come back barely over a cent. You know, a lot of these other ones did the same thing. The good thing about XLM is at least it came up to 40 cents right now. You know, at least it gave us that. But I mean, if you go back in time, it didn't even come close to getting to 63 like it did back here in November. That's the truth. And now, what is looking like a very bullish setup here, if it comes down any farther, it's going to quickly turn in what we thought could be a bull flag into a very quick take the stairs up, take the elevator up, take the stairs down, and that's what it's doing right now. We don't want to continue this. You continue this one more layer, it's going to fall out. And then you're going to see what real liquidity looks like. Right now, I can write this off as crypto went for a nice liquidity grab, and now we've bounced back in a certain sense. Ethereum's over 3,550 and some change. Bitcoin filled that gap on the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, at 114 from over the weekend, finally, officially. And now it can hold this. We can start moving up. Now, if it falls back below it, then I'm going to say, uh-oh. That means we're going to at least 110, and if we don't hold that, we might go to 91 gap. That's another CME gap that was left unfilled. And then I also start to say if we fall past here, uh-oh, because my target for the bull market of Bitcoin, before this bull market ever started, when we were working on that cup, trying to figure out if there was going to be a handle, which is why I put it right there, because we still had the consolidation that was ahead of it. My target was 122.1. We hit right there. So now I look at it and say, uh-oh. If we build ahead there, that means the 143 target that could technically be filled based on what we're seeing here. If that's a rising triangle, okay, we can get there. But if that's a rising wedge, you know, and sometimes it's hard to differ whether it's a rising triangle or wedge. It's oftentimes confirmed to be a wedge when it breaks back in and falls below and breaks down. Then you know it was a wedge. You know, but I don't know what it is right now. That's the problem. And if it breaks down to that head formation, that's when we have a big problem. So my target for the bull cycle for Bitcoin's filled. So from that standpoint, it's already done everything I thought it could do in this cycle. I was hoping that we could back test this and then go to 143 because that's the next target, legitimately. And we had a technical target of 126, but it might have been invalidated when we fell back into the structure, which means if that's invalidated, instead of going to 126, we're going to 110. That's what that means. Or even worse, to 104 or 5. But technically, 110 would have to be filled if this breaks down. And then you're starting to talk about filling this head right here. I'm telling you guys, we are getting very close to the bad spot here. Very close. And look, even IOTA from yesterday was over 20 cents. Got a much better deal today, and I still think you're probably going to get a better deal. So am I, by virtue. And some people are mad at me because I talked about liquidating before the drop yesterday. Well, I'm sorry, but I've said for 2 days your portfolio is going to be smaller by 15%. Don't be surprised. So if I'm giving you some wise advice hours before a big drop like we had, it's up to you whether or not you want to sit through it or you want to sit on the sidelines. And I've simply said in my Telegram last night too, which I got. I'm not going to go into it, but I could because of something somebody said last night, which I could take as a direct shot. But I take it as a learning experience for everybody, not just myself, because you either sit through that drop or you don't. And now if you didn't sit through the drop, and I'm not talking about selling XRP if you bought it at 35 cents. What I am saying, though, is if you're looking to buy it in that moment or you're looking to make sure that you save some of your money, you know, that was an opportunity to just kind of take a step back and let the market do what it does. Feels a lot better not having a shitload of money in the market right now than having a shitload in and not know if this is going to break down. That was the whole point. You know, it doesn't mean you can't buy back if it proves bullish. It doesn't mean that you even have to sell out. You could have put money to the side and you could have just had enough money to build a liquidity pool. So when we had that drop, you could advance your position. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't. There's not enough buying pressure right now to make me feel good. But at the same time, at least we've held the support structure so far. And I can at least in my own head write it off as a liquidity grab right now. But if it breaks these levels, it's more than just a level of liquidity. That means we're going to fall through. And now we've got more work to do. If Bitcoin goes to 110, where does that put everything else? Or if Ethereum goes down to 3,200 and some, where does that put everything else? You know, when the last target I had, I said if we broke through 3,700 and something, it's a $200 drop on Bitcoin. We had that drop. If it breaks through here, it's a little more significant. Because then, in my opinion, you would have to come at least down here. I don't see why you wouldn't. I circled the area we're trying to ride, and now it's followed through here. So now at least we're still above the 20. But we're coming to a point here where we're going to have to make a decision here. Like, if the market doesn't get volume and we're heading into a weekend, it could be an issue. But right now, we're fine. Right now is fine. Like, this is where we're fine. As long as we stay, and I stress it more, as long as we stay over that 35.50 approximately on Ethereum and 114 for Bitcoin, we have nothing to worry about. Even if XRP is above 289, there's nothing to worry about. It was hard for some to buy and then just sit through it. And that's the acknowledgement that I was trying to give yesterday. So, continuing. John, welcome in. AUW, Ben B, Amanda, Mick Shooting, Crypto Cooter. Thank you all four of you for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XP Predictor. Cape Cod Kyle, welcome in from Massachusetts. In Tom's Army for over 1 year, along with Syrian with the I Told You So badge, and Mark Casson as well. And Syrian, thanks for being a very trusted mod in here and in the Telegram. Big Dog, good morning, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 3 months with the XRP Meteor. Kenny Thompson's happy it's going down. I can DCA and get more. Exactly. That's a good mindset. If you liked it at higher areas, why not like it lower as well? Areli, good morning. John Bugathorpe, happy Friday, and thank you for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I Told You So badge. Let's see. Who else is in here? MGR, welcome in. Says, I agree this is the true test of alt season. I agree. We're testing right now whether or not it's the right time for alt season or it's too early. If it's too early, we'll probably dump 30% across the board. I know that sounds harsh. For XRP, probably 25. Because I think 250 would be the mark. And that's about a 25% drop. No, it's not. 20%. So 20% minimum for XRP from here. How about that? If we break down. But yeah, there's still inverse head and shoulders on larger time frames. Head and shoulders on smaller time frames. Maybe even an inverse popping up on some of the small. I don't really care about the 30-minute right now or the 15-minute. I'm trying to see what this is going to do in the daily. But still the overwhelming understanding of the 2-hourly, 4-hourly. Obviously that 30-minute for the shorter term. But it's more about like what happens here in the longer time frame. The shorter time frame is kicking us in the nuts right now, very hard. Cowabunga, good morning. Rudy Poo, welcome in. Says, sure as hell not for me. I'm saved by the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen to that. All the world stage, thanks for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge and me being abducted by aliens. Was at 305 now. And right now 302. So still around the same areas when you put that comment. Not much of a difference. Kenny Thompson says, August and September are normally bearish months for cryptocurrency compared to previous bull run years. 100%. Even in the bear market, they're bear compared to the other times. Arichi, welcome in, and thanks so much for being in Tom's Army for 6+ months with the XP Predictor. Cowabunga says those gaps, I guess, are not there for nope, they're not there for no reason. And typically they get filled, but not always. There are exceptions to the rule. But oftentimes when you fail to fill them on the way down and then you pop up, then you just end up coming down after, and I hate that. Because then you have more capital to drop down farther because you have more of a base that's still there. So think about like if you're top heavy on something, the more heaviness on the top, the faster and farther it can fall. And when it hits impact, the farther it can, you know, go down through the ground, so to say, because it's so heavy, it pushes through the soil and farther down. Think about that with crypto. If Bitcoin would have went from that 122 initially, dropped all the way down to 191, or went from 118 to 191, you know, to 91, and filled all of that was there, and then bounced back up, you'd be a whole different ballgame filling that 114 gap today. Now the problem is that newer base that expanded into Bitcoin at 123, 122, are they going to now force the domino effect farther down quicker? Just like for XRP, were we better off not going back to 340 and having that initial base that was there after we reached all-time highs in December and January, or December? Or is it better off, or January, is it better off that we did it again here in the last month, and now we've got all those extra buyers that could, in fact, force us lower by virtue? You know, it's hard to tell. Right now, they didn't push us through, so the understanding is they might drag us down here for a minute. And then they drag us far enough down to where these Johnny-come-latelys that were up at the top, they bail out, and then the market uses that liquidity to turn up. That's a lot of times what happens. So we'll see. It's interesting because I like to see these stages. Defined Group, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 3 months with the XRP Meteor and being a very, very, very trusted and helpful mod, not only in here, but very much so in the Telegram. AUB says, algo dropped below the neckline and the W reversal pattern. Yeah, oh yeah, a lot of them did. But it hasn't fallen below the neckline. Well, I mean, yeah, in this technical setting, yeah, I mean, it's come down a little bit, but you could still draw it out to where you could technically say it's above it in a different sense. But always make sure you pay attention to that 200-day when you're talking the necklines, because you can have overzealous moves. In fact, I would say that this is fine, even if it came down to 1952. As long as it doesn't break this pattern, we're fine. And I know that's crazy, but I mean, that's why there's a lot of volatility. You buy support, sell resistance. So in this case, the resistance is here, so you would sell up here at 32, and then you'd wait for it to come down here to 1937, unless you find something in between. But that's, in theory, what this is saying. And it would make sense to fill that out. This side of the pattern would then be filled out just like here for the bottom, back down, hold, back up, out, and then you can do the same thing. It's just that's a catastrophic drop from where it was at if you bought in. But yeah, the initial part of that neckline, you can't argue it. It definitely is not where we want it to be, price-wise. Shane, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge and me being abducted by aliens. I'm so grateful for you to introduce a lot in the Telegram and re-informing me about Epic. I know we can have a bearish downturn like we talked about yesterday, but being able to watch this, if in fact it does dump down and reestablish down around 80, 90 cents, this would be a score. So if we do reestablish, first area is right around $1.66, $1.65. But if it breaks through there, then we reestablish lower, and that's where we can get real interest. So I'm going to continue to pay attention to this one over time. Ripple has invested in this, and this is going to be like the more streamlined approach for the real-world assets and the implementation with, you know, not just corporations and businesses, but gaming platforms and all this other things in the meme world and things like that. So I think this is going to have some kind of value at some point. Are we early? Very likely. Because after having a big consolidation, I mean, It's almost unheard of where this wouldn't come back and back test this. And it could even be lower, but I think that's a fair assessment because it's so new. Can't even get a 200-day out of it because it hasn't been around long enough. XRP Healthcare continues to look like it's trending towards that 4.5 or 2.2 cent area. If this breaks down from here, I mean, I circled it down here. I mean, it very well could come back down there. And if this happens, we are in a we're already in a bearish trend right now. Since the top on most of these. There's a few outliers, but a lot of these are in a bear market, like Algo, IOTA. They're in bear markets. Since the top in December and January, we're in bear markets, pretty much across the board. XRP is pushing back into bear market territory, even though it's over $3. It's pushing back in because it's over 20% now. Or actually, we pushed back up a little bit. So, I mean, we're on the cusp. So we're still in correction territory for XRP. That's good. But that's also faring much better than most of the rest of crypto. Are they cutting the grass? Aw. Did they cut the grass on you, Tommy? Yeah, it's okay. You okay, buddy? I'm almost done, buddy. You need something? You gotta get your clothes changed, buddy. Hold on, everybody. We gotta change clothes.
Oh, you want to go tell Daddy how displeased you are? Well, he had something important to tell you. He must tell you.
Okay, so let's get to the nitty gritty here for the morning. Since my son obviously is gonna want to hang out here, he's special needs too, so I gotta give him a little bit of grace. Tanya, welcome in and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 2 years with the XRP 589 Moon Badge. The Cannabis Podcast and AUV, thank you so much for being in Tom's Army for 6+ months with the XP Predictor. MGR, good morning. Quan has to hold 102, but these death crosses are not good to see. No, they're not, MGR. And they fill out slowly over time. That's why we're hoping to get some kind of surge, but not expecting it. But if we get it, we'll be very thankful. Joseph Euler, thanks for being in Tom's Army for 6+ months with the XP Predictor. I know there was a donation that I need to get to before I leave. DET Yelram, thank you so much for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. Means a lot to me to see some of these new months for the first month. Even with all the volatility. Possible inverse head and shoulders formation for XRP on the shorter time frame. We'll know by next week. That's true. It's true because these could be setting up bottoming formations, which would be nice. I would much rather not sit through this for another 3 months and see these pan out. Because they're giving us an opportunity that could possibly be building here. If this pans out, but we have to see if we get the rejection up here at 3077, maybe a little bit higher. We got to see if the 2 hourly can invalidate, but right now it's coming up for rejection on the death cross unless we break out, which can happen. So we're kind of stuck. We don't know yet. Cowabunga, thanks for the $9.99 donation. I'm going to go spend some time with my son, everybody. I'll be back tonight. We did what we needed to do this morning. Just be observant. Right now we're fine. Remember the layers we talked about, and my son wants to hang out. So be blessed, everybody. Be blessed.